got Dan Greenwald in the house. Dan, have we ever been on a podcast before together? I mean, we've known each other for about 2 years.
Yeah. I don't think we've actually sat at the table with the mics.
We weren't on like Donnie's podcast ever at the same time.
I don't think so.
I think Donnie thinks I've never been on his podcast, but I actually was on the first one. So,
that's right.
Oh, maybe he didn't air that one. I don't know. That
exactly.
So
practice
bad.
one. That was the practice.
Oh, okay. All right. So he never asked me back on. So Dan,
yeah,
what have you been up to?
So for the last 10 months, about 10 months ago, this idea was born. 30-10-0 it's called.
30-10-0. And just real quickly, one sentence, what does that mean?
30-10-0 helps people get what they want by uncovering their 30,000-foot view of what they really want. The 10,000-foot view are the priorities. Your 0 are your measurable actions that support you getting it.
So 10,000. So 30,000 might be, I want to be president of the United States.
Could be.
10,000, I'm not saying for me, I'm just hypothetical. 10,000 might be, well, we better start registering and making connections to raise money. Because those are priorities if I want to take the steps to be president. What's the next one?
0 is who are going to be the people out there getting your X amount of people signed up per week, per month, KPIs.
So, and this is basically to kind of a methodology to help any business, anybody who's got expansive goals and they don't know how to achieve them.
Yeah, I would take a step back. Is that it's about what does someone really want? Not just the generic air is good, money, love, family, but what do you really fucking want?
Okay, but I think so let's take a step back now that we know that's your business, and I assume you charge for these services to help companies figure this out.
Mm-hmm. And people, yeah.
And so what were you doing before? Like what led you to this?
I'm a former educator. Passionate about teaching, figuring out how people learn the craft of education, and my background's really in like curriculum design. I love building things.
So who were you teaching? Like, what curriculums?
I started teaching 4th grade up here in Washington Heights, District 6. Then I went to the private schools here, and all the way through, figuring out how, what do you want to teach? What is the end game? What are the variables? The time that you have, the testing that has to go on, go figure it out, make it impactful, meaningful.
How do you define impactful in that sense?
Well, it depends which school it was, but for me, it was I wanted the kids in 4th grade when I first started out. I wanted kids to have a sense of purpose, understand what it is that they actually care about. And for 4th grade, that was being thrown into the fire. It was all about teaching math and English, but I had a little carve out that we created a curriculum called Who and What Makes Art Art, in which every week played a different song, and we took them through from blues to rock to jazz to rap to funk. And it was the idea with the goal is that these kids in 4th grade, again, did not have much, but at the end of the day, they decide what art is. They have the power to understand, hey, I believe that this cup is art. You don't, but that's cool. That's what it's about. And so that's kind of why I went into the education world. It was, this like Kantian moral imperative of don't bitch about what you didn't get growing up. Go and make something happen, make it work, figure it out. And that's what drove me into the world of education. And then I got blinded by a little bit of the idol of money, right? Of like, I can't make enough.
Because you live in New York City, it's very difficult. Very difficult to be a teacher, I think, in New York City, which is sad, I think.
Yeah. And that's actually where, those are the warriors. The teachers that are teaching here in the inner circle, in the inner city, they're warriors, really.
And do you feel though, like too much of New York, this is all over the US. Do you feel too much in the later years, teaching is everybody's being taught for the test because government funding comes from how they like in New York State, they take these Regents tests at the end of the year, and then funding is determined by how well the kids do on these tests. So teachers have this incentive they're financially incentivized to teach for the test. They'll only teach the things that are going to potentially appear on the test, as opposed to curriculums like, learning about art and things like that.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think it's a mess. I think it's a giant mess. I think the entire I mean, I don't wanna say, the entire American education, but it's built on the Industrial Revolution, and we're far from the Industrial Revolution. On top of that,
How can things change?
oof, awesome question, James.
That's why I get paid the big
I
bucks
see
on
that, I see
podcasting.
that. First of all, I'll get to that in a second. Teaching is a craft. Okay. I think the key is understanding that it's a craft, it's not just a job. Doing it as a job, no one's going to really be great at it. The craft is how do you do it within the like variables of testing or whatever things are laid out. Um, it's one thing that that I think we are starting to see is, concepts like project-based learning, in which you do have educators that are skilled enough, talented enough to recognize that I understand how people learn. I understand what intrinsically motivates people. The same thing, that if you're in a classroom, why do I want to sit here and just rise up when there's a bell? I'm gonna like as an educator, I'm gonna figure out what's gonna get people moving. An example is like project-based learning that I'm not just learning math for the sake of math. I'm not just learning reading and writing for the sake of reading and writing. Hey, there's a bunch of homeless situations right around our school. Let's figure it out. Let's create a project in which we're working on the entire year, in which there's meaningful. Hey, guys, this is why you got to work on your math because we want to make an impact, right? People inherently are driven to help and be involved and see movement, especially our Netflix generation that wants to be involved and be involved in impact making, but they need to understand why you're asking me to do what I'm doing now and how it's gonna and what I'm doing, what are the long-term impact, not just because I have to do it because I'm in 3rd grade. That
So
doesn't work anymore.
so 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 c how did you so you get frustrated, obviously, with this, but you're passionate about kind of educating and teaching people how to learn. Where did you get the idea of was there a point where you're like, "I can't take this anymore, I'm gonna switch to the entrepreneurial side,"
Yeah.
or
So I so in terms of my so I mean, I guess this goes back. I grew up with a stutter.
Mhm.
A pretty significant stutter. And I grew up obsessed with figuring out how people change and why people change. Ideally to change myself, but in doing so, you grow up with shame. That's the ultimate motivator to get you to move and do. Um,
Why do you think you had a stutter?
right? That's the like classic question, physiological or psychological. So, they don't really know. I think my stutter was there to protect me. I think it was there to protect me.
Because I know people who've had a stutter in their language, but when they learned a new language, they didn't have a stutter in the new language,
Interesting.
but they kept the stutter in the old language. And I've heard the same thing between speaking and singing. No stutter in the singing,
No
stutter
stuttering
in the
singing.
yeah. So it's just like different parts of the brain get
Yeah, I mean, it's different parts of the brain. For me, I think a big part of it was also like psychological, in which you believe in yourself. You start to believe in yourself, and it happened over years. Now it's turned into a light on my dashboard that helps inform me. Hey, there's a lot of chaos happening. You're in a weak state. You need to do something. Like people have migraines, back spasms. That's all it is for me.
so okay, so what happened? So
So I grew up with that, and I came to a lot of, I came to a lot of realizations in college, in which I uncovered, hey, there are things more important than just money. My stutter doesn't define me, right? And I started learning about the power of the true self, for lack of a better word, right? And I saw that as this ultimate, this ultimate motivator, that when people tap what they really are passionate about, what they're really soulfully connected with, they have the power to move through walls that are up in front of them.
do you think people have a single passion that
No,
or
it evolves.
so like how does somebody find like right now today what they're passionate about or what the set of things are that they're passionate about?
So I think it's about knowing how to deal with the stories that are going on in our head. I think we have a constant flow of stories that are always going on in our head, and that's part of like 30-10-0.
Okay, so it's like walk me through it. Like, let's say I come to you and I'm like, you know what? Um, XYZ age. I don't know. I've never had a passion in my life and I just got laid off at my job. I have no clue what to do next. What's the first step?
You go through a bunch of guided questions.
What kind of questions?
Guided questions. You have
Mhm.
5. You have a set of 5 guided questions. What do you want to accomplish over the next 3 months, the next 12
But what if I don't
months?
know the answer? I'm coming
That's
to you
not
because
true.
I just got laid off.
You
Uh,
answer them.
okay, so like in the next 3 months, hypothetically, I just got laid off. I want to make sure I can feed my kids.
Awesome. What else?
Uh, okay, I'll play a persona. I wanna feed my 3 kids, but I don't wanna be doing something I hate every day, when I come home from work.
Okay. And then those are questions 1 and 2. All
Mhm.
right. 3 months, 12 months. Um, then it's also about, then the third one is story watch. What are some of your guiding stories that have been with you? Themes that you have been telling yourself since the age of 4?
So what's an example?
Um,
Like, I can say Star Wars.
or about yourself.
About myself? I don't know. I think that's a hard question to
I think
answer.
it is a hard question, but so the way that works, so then we start with answering a bunch of questions. Where did you grow up? What was your family structure? Do you have brothers or sisters? Um, did you seek the love of your mom or dad more? Right? It's just basic,
How would I even know that?
you would know it.
Mm, I don't
Um,
think I know it.
which one? You like without putting too much thought into it. Um, were you seeking the love of your mom or dad?
I guess I was seeking different things from each one.
You have to put one or the other.
Okay, I would say my dad.
Okay. Um, and usually around ages between 4 and 8, these guided, we have these stories of what do I need to do in order to get that loving connectedness from my father, right? Usually, if we don't shift that, that's with us for the rest of our life.
Mm.
Usually, that's the core purpose of what this person who just lost their job or is trying to figure out their new thing, they've never touched. Usually, the way that we work, this is my belief as to how like people are, right? The inner workings of people is that we are like creatures. We are these emotional creatures that are born. That when we don't get, when we don't get the love right out of the womb, we die. I mean, and then as we go through ages beyond the like baby bird phase, right? Um, we have this understanding as to what we're like craving, that emotional craving from our father or mother. It starts to take different shapes. Our mind is there to protect us, not from being eaten from like animals anymore, but that's our like creature power. That's driving us forward. And that's powerful, incredibly powerful. And then that kind of takes shape as to what we do and how we do what we do, driving us all the way through. I'm sure you're thinking about different ideas as to how where you are now, that loving connectedness that you were craving from your father has drawn you all the way through, good and bad, right? Causing you to have different types of decisions. That's the point of the story watch when you go through 30-10-0. And the goal is that the more you do it, you practice that, you understand it, the better you get at uncovering your guiding stories. And it's pretty powerful. We've done this with about like 25 people now, 4 other companies, in which you see it when I'm with someone and it's not me telling them, I'm guiding them through these separate questions, right?
Mm.
You see oh my God, that's it. I can't do anything because all I want is for my father to tell me you're good enough.
Right, and so how do you so now you're building towards their 30,000-foot story.
Yeah.
How do they finally I feel like this is at 50,000 feet, but we're getting them to the 30,000-foot
We're
level.
preparing them for the climb.
Right.
That
So what's an outcome? Like, what's a 30,000-foot level that they come to from going through this story watch?
So I have a bunch of different examples. I mean, I'll tell you mine.
First off, did you quit your job and do this? that you start doing this coaching?
It's not even coaching because it's now turned into a tool. It's a piece of technology.
Okay, 'cause
Yeah.
it'll ask the questions,
It
it'll
asks the questions, and we're going heavy technology, minimal people. It's kinda like microdosing, guides.
like, you'll help people you'll ask questions through the technology, I'll answer them, and then you'll have people kind of get on a schedule of reviewing these questions and writing down the 30,000-foot goals
And
and
then it turns into an entire tracker that has their 30, which is the all important of like, why do you wanna do what it is you do, right? And it's not about business. It's like, how is your business helping you achieve what it is that you want?
Okay, so
It's
let's
shift
go
the
through
mindset.
your story.
Sure. So, you wanna go through my story or my 30-10-0?
Yeah, your 30-10-0.
So my, I mean, I can I'll show it to you after, but, my 30 is to live in a strong state and grow 30-10-0, the brand, the tool to help impact, 1,000 people, and in doing so,
What do you
provide abundantly for my family.
what do you mean by a strong state?
So state is made up of our mental, physical, and spiritual health. That if any one of them are weak, we're gonna be weak. That's the first thing it's the concept state, story, action, right? There are 2 core concepts part of 30-10-0. The first is story watch, the ability to recognize our stories before they turn into action. The second core concept is state, story, action. The state we're in dictates the stories that are going on in our head that dictates the type of action. Strong state leads to strong stories, lead to strong actions. Shitty state, shitty stories, shitty actions.
I believe this very much. Like, obviously, there's sort of the obvious extremes, which is that if you're sick in bed, you're not gonna come up with creative ideas for a business or a book or ideas or whatever. If you're arguing with your spouse or your friends constantly, same thing. If you're not constantly creative, your creativity muscle will atrophy. If you're not spiritual in the sense that you have a sense that there are things out of your that you cannot try to control, then you'll waste too much energy trying to
That's right.
control things you can't control. So how does this then I guess leads to story in the sense that given a strong state, you're gonna only come up with an idea, and given strong creativity that you're exercising, you're only gonna come up with stories that are worth pursuing.
Or I mean, I think we have to be clear is that our mind is constantly creating stories. It's not that like we're not even like I'm gonna cross the street. Like our mind's creating.
Mm.
It's kind of guiding us. Is the idea is that how do we farm? How do we cultivate these strong stories, the stories that we really want without even thinking about it? Is that well, we have to constantly be in a strong state. So in 30-10-0, you identify your 30, the first 10,000-foot like priority is about what do you need to do to be in strong state. Then you map that out. Everybody is different. People that have gone through it, they need to dance every night. For me, it's I need to work out. And by the way, you were the one that introduced me to my first to Jen, right?
Yeah, it was did I introduce you?
I don't
Or
know.
I no, I think we
We were
started at the same time.
here, but she was very influential for me.
Mm, mm.
So for me, it's physical working out, but it's also you have to design these actions for easy wins because our mind's going to start to go crazy and try to. So it's did you work out? For me, it's uh, 20 push-ups, check in the box, right? I know I need more. I do more. Meditation for me is key. I know I need to do a solid 15-minute meditation every day. That really keeps me working, if not 30, but I have 5.
Mm,
If I do 5, that's a check. That's a
mm,
win.
mm.
Um, um, what I've learned is that I thought I was really a great dad, and maybe I am, but I wasn't being focused enough. And I learned this because you're constantly learning, right? There's so many great books and teachers out there that and I could incorporate that now and saying, hey, I need to actively give my family love. That means, hey guys, have a great day. Give me a hug. To my wife Babette, like Babette, I love you.
So it's kinda like by focusing on these questions, sort of hones it rather than just sort of like randomly being a good dad, sort of like hones you in on, I need to do putting in that little extra to get to where you wanna be.
It's the process of figuring out what it is that you really want and mapping out what you need to do in order to get there. And along the way, you have easy wins. You design it with easy wins,
And
and
that's like at the 10,000-foot
that's
level
at the
where you get
10,000.
for each 30,000-foot level, the 10,000-foot level helps you get the easy wins to get to where you wanna be in the
And
30,000.
then you have 0 are your daily actions, these actions working out,
Okay.
right? And so, but you do it and you line it up so that you can actually measure it.
And then when do you say, "Okay, I've got this thing going, now I wanna start a business, or I wanna change my
So so I didn't build this for to be a business. This was my own way
Mhm,
of keeping me out of my own way to help
mhm.
me stay super focused. And then I was doing consulting work with different founders and companies around just like like helping them growth, like growth hacking and whatnot. And they were like, being a teacher as you are, and you try to use yourself to help people learn things. So that's what I was doing. And they were like, forget about the consulting. I want that. I'll pay you for that. And that kept on happening, and so I created a quick curriculum around it, used Google Sheets, Google Doc. People kept on paying it, and I'm still shocked that it's been very helpful for people. It makes sense why, and I'm really proud of it, but it's like, it's awesome to see when you could help people,
Mhm.
right? When you know that your work really helped impact people, shift people, and move them forward, that's what I'm after.
So you started doing it almost like as a consultant, you were charging in these one-off cases, you were seeing results. I'm assuming you were seeing results.
Yeah.
And, like, what was a result you saw when you were personally doing this? Not
Um,
your result, but, like, the
yeah,
client.
yeah, they were, w w within a week, because they're just doing things that have to do with their state that they weren't doing before, so they feel it within a week. Um, they're more like like it depended what they were trying to work on, but one woman, she didn't know what she wanted to do next. We worked through it. She mapped out her 30, she mapped out her 10s. Her whole life is about now food. She's now 60 something. She was being driven by having her father like recognize her, and she was done with that. And so now what? Well, what are you passionate about? What do you want? And so there's a process for coming back and forth, and you could call bullshit on bullshit when you hear the stories. And people get very good at recognizing their stories and also other people's
So
stories.
how did she recognize that food was a passion for her?
She just kept on. She kept on coming back to it.
And then what did she
And
do?
travel. And then
What
so
what was her 10,000 foot, like, to
so that she would be cooking something new. She would be cooking something new every single week. She would be sharing food with other people. She would be meeting other people, one new person per week that was also passionate about a food that she didn't know about. She was planning out travel around food.
Mhm.
She just got back from Alaska, her dream trip. Like, that's one example. Another example,
What will she do with this? Like, what will she do you think it'll evolve into?
she has to redefine her 30. I just had a talk with her last week. I'm like, "Now what do you want?"
Mm,
Now it's
okay.
time, like, because listen, we're not really stagnant beings. We go through life, things unfold, we want different things, we experience different things.
But
We're
she but she would say she's, like, feeling more fulfilled now.
100%.
And so now you've kind of codified, like, you've put into software a lot of these questions. You w Does it cost the customer of your software that you're not there personally guiding them through these questions?
So when
Cost
you
in the sense that it's not as valuable?
well, yes and no, right?
Mhm,
For different people, they just run through it.
mhm.
They get it. Some people need more help.
And is the software done? Is it
Um, done is like relative, right? It's
like, can
about,
I try out the software?
yeah, yeah.
What's
It's
what's
it's
the
about it's about to come out of alpha, and we're doing we're doing beta testing. So
I wanna be a beta tester, I
I
wanna
love
try.
it. I love it.
What's
It's a
the
3010.com.
just the numbers?
Letters
Okay,
that
30,
we
10, 0.
have someone working on getting that website out of China right now.
Uh, and so, okay, so basically, I'll ask you through these questions, and it'll kinda guide me to thinking about how I can prioritize to get to the third.
Here's how it works. You go through this and you identify your target of what your life target, and that changes, but your life target, the more defined that is, the more likely you are to hit that. Next thing is that you map out your 10,000-foot view, and the first one's always, what do you need to do to be in strong state, to be in
I
a strong state?
I feel like a lot of people don't like, particularly, well, I could say for younger or older, a lot of people just don't know how to find their target, their life's target. They might say it's X, Y, and Z, but it's just not.
It's
They
stories,
mhm.
right? It's those
But they have
stories.
to then kind of come back frequently to reevaluate whether those stories are providing real value for them.
That's right.
Mm.
That's right. That's right, and you become very, very good at it, and part of the tool
It's
is
almost like a practice.
it's a skill like playing ball. Yeah,
Mm.
you become very good. It's called story watch. There's a button. Every time you recognize a story, you push it and you get it out of your head and you put it down. Like when you had a nightmare. I used to crawl into my parents' bed. My mom's like, "What is your nightmare? I want to go back to sleep." I'm like, "I don't what's your nightmare?" Once you say it, it's gone.
You know what it reminds me of is I have my own sort of model for decision making. For every decision, I sort of ask myself, what am I feeling? Am I feeling fear inside or am I feeling growth inside? Is this a growth decision or a fear decision? A classic example. Do I want to go to this wedding because I'm afraid people will hate me if I don't? Or do I want to go because I love going to weddings. I want to support my friend. I want to be there and see such a celebratory moment. That would be more of a growth decision. And so I always find if I lean towards the growth decisions versus the fear decisions, I'm making the right decisions.
That's interesting that you say that. There are 3 guiding principles which have been mine, but now are part of 30-10-0 that I think line up. 2 of them line up directly with what you're saying. The first one, life is short.
Mm.
Time is time is the time is the greatest commodity, hands down. Number 2, seeking authenticity versus approval. Number 3, fear equals opportunity, right? So when if we don't know how to change or if people are stuck, recognize what you're really fearful of and lean into that. No joke, that becomes a doorway, right? Me being here, Podcast Row, being with, I'm not a big fan of speaking on a mic in public. I grew up with a stutter. It's not my thing, right? But each month I try to lean into a big, big fear because I know that's going to keep me moving. It's going to keep
Right.
my gears
So,
going.
so potentially you could have said no to going on a podcast because and that would because you were afraid because of the stutter
Of shame.
and right. So that would have been a fear decision instead the growth decision is let's go on the podcast.
Bring it on.
Yeah.
Bring it on. Bring it on. And and
And
and and that's what it's about. And so the idea, and listen, and there's also another problem it solves. And I think maybe you could relate to this is that there's amazing teachers out there now. Amazing authors that are
mhm.
creating awesome books and podcasts and seminars, but there's not a process or a tool that helps take these concepts and grounds it into my existence in measurable ways.
So this all sounds great. You're at the very beginning stages. When do you think you'll be out of when do you think everybody can use this?
We're hoping, I, um, we're hoping the next 2 months.
And like you'll have a subscription model
Yeah,
or
there's a subscription model. We have 2 separate structures. One is for 30-10-0 as a person. Then we all start giving workshops.
and then and then that obviously it's scalable with the software and you'll start getting testimonials
We have them ready. Yeah.
and I could also see potentially a book coming out of this, the 30-10-0 book.
It's being done. You could give me some advice as to what 10,000 foot my tens and zeros for what I need in order to write the book,
Yeah.
right? Because that could be very helpful. We're already starting. People have been pushing me to write this book, write this book. I have enough to do it. I want to do it. I want to do it. I just need to incorporate it into the structure of my priorities.
No, I think there's lots of ways to do it other than you sitting down and writing a book because you have the ideas, but you may not have the time or you may not want to write a book. Fortunately, there's lots of ways to do it. There's also you could be a public speaker and tell these stories, which is great because the first thing you could say is I have a stutter. And, I think that's a compelling way to start a talk.
That's right.
And there's lots of ways to get the word out on this and to be part of a community of people who are building similar businesses that could then allow you to scale, as everybody recommends everyone else's software, business, whatever. Other coaches use your software to narrow things down. You could find distribution that way. But I'm excited to use the
Great.
software. So can I be a beta tester?
Yes.
All right, so then after that, we'll go on a podcast and we'll see the results.
Excellent. I love
So
it.
well, Dan, thanks for I'm just you got me thinking right away, even just manually on the 30,000, 10,000 foot zero, because I think this is a process that never ends for people. It's never enough. And I'm excited to try this. So
Great. I look forward.
yeah, and good luck as you launch the software. Let's see what happens next. Let's keep in touch on it.
Excellent, James. Thanks.
Thanks, Dan.